everyone, and welcome back to Contemporary Mama. My name is Carolyn. Thank you so much for checking out my video. Today is part 2 of my 1950s housewife mini-series, and I am going to be doing what I eat in a day as the average suburban 1950s housewife. I'm going to be showing you everything from breakfast, lunch, and then of course the big traditional family dinner that I'm going to prepare tonight, along with a very special dessert. So make sure you stay tuned to see everything that the average housewife would have eaten all the way back in the 1950s. I really hope that you enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you missed part 1, I'm going to link it up here in the cards and also down below in the description box. Good morning, everyone. I am going to start out my day by preparing some coffee. And thank goodness 1950s housewives drank a lot of coffee, or else I don't think I could do this. So I'm going to be making it in my French press today instead of my electric coffee maker. Breakfasts in the 1950s were fortunately quite simple. Women would usually start their day with either a boiled or a poached egg, along with some cereal or a slice of toast. They'd also usually have a small serving of fruit to go along with it, and of course a cup of coffee. I have never made a poached egg before today, so it's sort of like the blind leading the blind if you're looking for advice on how to do it, but I think it turned out okay, and I seasoned it with a little salt and pepper. I'm certain that in the 50s, women would prepare a nice breakfast for their husbands, but my husband usually eats breakfast at work, so I'm enjoying my breakfast solo this morning. From what I have read, housewives in the 1950s would eat sort of like a mini dinner for lunch. They would have a serving of meat with vegetables, rice or potatoes, and a simple salad. Sometimes they'd also have a slice of bread with butter or a small serving of fruit, and serve it all with some tea or coffee. Luckily, I have some leftovers from last night, some chicken, mushrooms, and squash. So I'm gonna heat that up in the oven, not the microwave, of course, and serve it with a very simple salad and a cup of tea. All right, here comes my favorite part, dessert. And I had such a hard time narrowing down what to make, but I ended up going with this old-fashioned coconut cream pie. And the best part about this recipe is that you can absolutely make the whole thing from scratch if you want, but there are so many shortcuts that are gonna let you whip this up in no time at all. To get started, you're going to whisk those egg yolks in a bowl and set them aside. Now in a medium saucepan, you can stir together the cornstarch, sugar, and salt. Now add in your half and half and stir this up really well. You want to use a spatula to scrape up all the dry ingredients so that you don't get any lumps. Once you've smoothed it out, you can stir in your egg yolks and bring this to a boil over low heat, making sure you're stirring it constantly. When you see it starting to thicken, you want to remove the pan from the heat and then stir in the vanilla extract and the cup of unsweetened coconut. You're going to let this cool right in the pan for about 30 minutes. Just make sure that you stir it occasionally. Once the filling has cooled for about 30 minutes, you can pour it into your pie crust. If you baked your own, just make sure that it's completely cooled. Then you can cover it with plastic wrap and refrigerate it for about 2 hours. Because this does need to sit for so long in the fridge, you want to make sure that you do this early in the day. And that is definitely something that housewives did in the 1950s. They would prepare their desserts earlier in the day so that they'd be done ahead of time. While the pie is chilling in the refrigerator, you can always prep the toasted coconut topping. All you have to do is spread some of the sweetened coconut flakes on a baking sheet and pop it into about a 325-degree oven and let that bake for 5 to 10 minutes until they turn nice and golden brown. To finish off the pie, you just have to top it with some whipped cream and sprinkle on the toasted coconut. And I will be the first to admit that I totally cheated here and I'm just using store-bought Cool Whip. But if you want, you could just beat some heavy whipping cream and powdered sugar together until it forms soft peaks and then spread it over the pie. You want to store the pie in the fridge until you're ready to eat it. I couldn't think of a more quintessential 1950s meal to make for dinner than good old-fashioned meatloaf and mashed potatoes. However, I am putting a bit of a modern twist by making a cheese-stuffed turkey meatloaf, and I just wanted to let you know I will link the recipe in the description box, but just for your information, I am having the recipe because it definitely makes enough for an army if you make it with all the original quantities. From what I can tell, an average dinner in the 50s would include a medium to large serving of meat served with potato, rice, or some sort of starch and a vegetable or simple salad. Sometimes they'd also serve a slice of bread along with it or a small serving of fruit. Once you have all your ingredients prepped, all you have to do is mix them together in a large bowl. After everything is mixed, you want to dump the meat mixture onto a piece of parchment paper and smooth it out to form a large rectangle. Then you want to sprinkle on your shredded cheese, and you can use as much as you want. I certainly don't measure cheese in my house. After that, you can top it with a handful or two of fresh spinach. Now you want to use the parchment paper to roll up the meatloaf jelly roll style. Once it's all rolled up, just spray a baking sheet with nonstick spray and try to put your meatloaf seam side down. If you fail like me, just try to close off any edges so that none of the toppings leak out. Now just pop this into a 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. While the meatloaf is starting to bake in the oven, I'm going to mix up all the ingredients for the glaze. And can you even call yourself a 1950s housewife if you don't make a ketchup glaze for your meatloaf? After 45 minutes, take the meatloaf out of the oven and brush on your glaze. Then just pop it back in and let it continue cooking for 15 more minutes. While the meatloaf finished up baking, I prepped some mashed potatoes and green beans to serve along with it.
If I could take you up and boom, 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 tell me I'm the only one that you know. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Life could be a dream. And I ding dong, plans would come true. And I ding dong, my whole life loving you. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again, shaboom, and hoping we meet again. Oh, life, and I ding dong, boom,
So I just wanted to pop on here quick and let you know what I thought about this whole experience. So I cook a lot more than most people I know, and even I thought that this was a lot. It took up almost my entire day preparing breakfast, lunch, and dinner completely from scratch with no shortcuts. Well, there were a few shortcuts, but mostly with no shortcuts. Things like using my oven to warm up food just took so much longer than popping it in the microwave. So I really give these housewives back in the 50s a lot of credit because they were preparing everything from scratch every single day. I do really appreciate the simplicity of their meals, and that is probably because they didn't have access to the vast quantity of recipes that we do these days. They really only had their cookbooks as a reference. Overall, I thought that their diet is pretty similar to mine, maybe a little bit more carb heavy, but overall it's fairly balanced. Alright, thank you all so much for watching my 1950s Housewife mini-series. Let me know if you'd like me to add more videos to the series because I do have a lot more ideas, or if you'd like me to do it from another decade, because that I think would be really fun. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel before you leave. Give me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys on Sunday with a brand new video. Bye!
If I could take you up and